Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. If you can make your way to a seat, we're going to get started. Shabbat Shalom to everyone on Zoom. We're so thrilled to have you here. We have a raucous room for a change, so it's taking us a little minute to settle, but we're going to get there. If everybody who's here can please find a seat. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, welcome. It's so wonderful to be here together today to celebrate Shabbat, to celebrate Lula's Bat Mitzvah, to celebrate being back in person for Liberal Minyan. I'm Rabbi Ayelet Cohen. I'm so thrilled to be leading davening this morning with Rabbi Rapport and with Ze'evi Tovlev, who's a cantorial student at HUC. And we are thrilled to be with those of you here in this space and those of you out there on Zoom to join together in greeting this day and in celebrating this moment. This is such a milestone day in our community for all of us here. Lula and her family have given us the opportunity to celebrate our first in-person Mitzvah since the onset of COVID-19. And so it's joy on top of joy, celebration on top of celebration to really get to be here. And as you who are at home start to feel more comfortable to come in person, we invite you to continue to do that and to start to do that if you haven't yet. For those of you joining us from far and wide, and for whom being in person is not an option, we're so happy to be able to continue the option of Zoom so you can continue to be with us in this way on Shabbat morning. For those of you who aren't familiar with services here at CBST, there are a couple of things I hope you have in your hands. One of them is this red Siddur, the Kol HaNeshama Siddur. And I'll be calling pages in this Siddur. Most of what you need is going to be in here. And the prayers are in Hebrew with English translation and often transliteration so that you can sing along. And if you don't know the words or if you can't quite figure it out, la 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 is fine. Closing your eyes and taking it in is fine. To be here and just take it all in. There's a lot to take in. Also, you should have this beautiful program for Lula's Bat Mitzvah, which has, in addition to this amazing collage on the front, some additional readings and poems, some more information. So if at any point in the service you get a little bit lost, you find your mind wandering. That's okay. It's part of the process. You can use these tools of the Siddur and of the booklet to help center you if you're feeling a little bit lost, if you need something to read or to look at, if you want to, kind of peek ahead and see what's to come. All of these are tools for you, for your use to help orient you. There can be something disorienting about being in synagogue if that's not your usual thing, about being back in person if you're out of practice, about being at home if you're seeing people here in person. There's a lot of disorientation that can happen and to feel a little bit uneasy, and that's okay. And so we're going to hold all of that wherever we are this morning with the multiple feelings we might be holding, and try to connect in the ways that we can. And with that, we turn to page 165 in the Siddur. This is a piece of the morning liturgy which really reflects the anxiety that the rabbis felt around the dangers of the world, that they knew when they went to sleep that life was uncertain, and they believed really that they were handing their soul to the divine, to the unknown, and if they got it back in the morning, it would be a gift. It would be a blessing. And so with each morning, we greet the surprise of life. It can be hard to do that. Sometimes we greet the morning and we think, oh, I'm so tired. I can barely move. I can barely get out of bed. This is a challenge to greet the morning as a blessing, that our life, our existence is a blessing, and that the soul inside of us is pure. We are created the way that we are because there is wonder within us, because each of us is exactly as we need to be in all of our transitions, in all of our changes, in all of our journey. Elohai Neshama. Elohai Neshama Shenatata Bi Tehorahi. 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 Page 177. Please stand in body or in spirit. Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam, Baruch hu, Baruch Oseh v'Reshit, Baruch Shemo, Baruch Omer v'Oseh, Baruch hu, Baruch Gozer u'Mekayim, Baruch Shemo, Baruch Merachem al haaretz, Baruch hu, Baruch Merachem al habriot, Baruch Shemo, Baruch Meshalem Sachar Tov L'Reav, Baruch hu, Baruch Ma'avir Afela U'Mevi Ora, Baruch Shemo, Baruch Chai La'ad V'Kayam LaNetzach, Baruch hu, Baruch Podeh U'Matzil, Baruch hu, Baruch Shemo. Please be seated. We turn to page 209 for the Psalm for Shabbat. Just a word to remind you to silence your cell phones if you haven't already. And also that it's our practice not to take pictures during the service, not to take our phones out, to try to be as present as we can in the moment. It's very different than the way that we usually function in the universe, but I want to encourage you to try to do that, to actually use your mind and your memory to see this and remember this, and save the photos for later. We are actually on doing Tefillah, right? On page 211, 4 lines from the bottom.
Sadi katamar yifrach yifrach, Sadi katamar yifrach, Sadi katamar yifrach yifrach, Sadi katamar yifrach, ke eres balvanon yizke, ke eres balvanon yizke, ke eres balvanon yizke yizke, ke eres balvanon yizke, ke eres balvanon yizke, ke eres balvanon yizke yizke. Sadi katamar yifrach yifrach, Sadi katamar yifrach, Sadi katamar yifrach yifrach, Sadi katamar yifrach, ke eres balvanon yizke, ke eres balvanon yizke, ke eres balvanon yizke yizke, ke eres balvanon yizke, ke eres balvanon yizke, ke eres balvanon yizke yizke.
We turn to page 231 for Psalm 150, the final psalm of the book of Psalms, a psalm of total praise. And we invite Rabbi Rapport.
Hallelu el bekodsho, Hallelu birkiauzo, Hallelu big barotav, Hallelu kirov gudlo, Hallelu beteka shofar, Hallelu benevel bechinor, Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Hallelujah, b'tofu machor, Hallelujah, b'milim b'meukav, Hallelujah, b'tzitzilei shama, Hallelujah, b'tzitzilei trua, kol hanshama tehaleluya, kol hanshama tehaleluya. Hallelujah, 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 Throughout our Shabbat service this morning, our Bat Mitzvah has written a series of kavanot. These are orientation devices, signposts along the way of our service to let us know what we might expect and to let us know how she has integrated some of these ancient concepts into her contemporary view of Judaism. So, Lula, I want to invite you to the bima.
Although our beliefs may be different, we are all Jews and we come together to be part of this community. CBST opens a religious environment and talks about it. It allows us to be open to what the Torah says and asks how we feel about the words that we are reciting.
We invite you to join us on page 235 for Nishmat Kol Chai. Let every living thing praise you.
Nishmat kol chai, tevarech et shimcha, Adonai Eloheinu. Nishmat kol chai, tevarech et shimcha, Adonai Eloheinu. Nishmat kol chai, tevarech et shimcha, Adonai Eloheinu. Nishmat kol chai, tevarech et shimcha, Adonai Eloheinu.
We rise in body and spirit for Chatzi Kaddish, page 245.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbi.
Amen.
Ve'almad yivrach yirtei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon uvyomechon uvchayedecho beit Yisrael ba'agala ubizman kariv v'imeru.
Amen.
Yehei Shemei Rabba Mevorach Leolam Lalmei Amaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitramam V'yitnasei V'yitadar V'yitaleh V'yitalal Shemei Dekudesha
Brichu.
Le'elam in kol birchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Da'amiran be'alma v'imeru.
Amen. We remain standing as we are called to prayer. Under the line on page 246, we sing Faith Rogau's poetic interpretation, and then together we recite the Baruch Hu. As we bless the source of life, so we are blessed. As we bless the source of life, so we are blessed. And the blessing gives us strength and makes our visions clear. And the blessing gives us peace and the courage to dare. As we bless the source of life, so we are blessed. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Adonai hamevorach leolam va'ed. Please be seated if you are standing. And on that same page, page 247, we sing a prayer for dawning light.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Yotzer or uvorei choshech. Oseh shalom uvorei et hakol. Yotzer or uvorei choshech. Oseh shalom uvorei et hakol.
In a creative interpretation of this beautiful prayer, Lula and her family have chosen a poem by the great lesbian poet Mary Oliver, a P-Town resident herself, and we are honoring the mentors of Lula's P-Town adult community. I'm going to bring a microphone over to you so that you can each share in the line of this beautiful poem. We're on page 2 of Lula's program.
I'm sorry?
Here I am. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiki. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean.
Thank you. Stand or sit. Stand or sit.
The one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes.
Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is.
I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down into the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I've been doing all day.
Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?
Page 269 in your prayer book, your Siddur.
Or chadash al Tzion ta'ir v'nizkechu lanu mehira le'oro Baruch atah Adonai Yotzer HaMeorot.
Continuing on page 273.
Ahava rabba havtanu,
Adonai Eloheinu, chemla gedola v'tera, chamalta aleinu. Ba'avinu malkeinu, ba'avur avotenu v'imotenu, shebatchu v'cha, avinu malkeinu. V'telamdem chukei chayim, ken techonenu tlamdenu, avinu ha'av harachaman, amrachem rachem aleinu. V'ten belibeinu lehavin, ulehaskil lishmoa, lilmod ulelamed, lishmor velasot, ulekayem et kol divrei Talmud Toratecha be'ahava. In an interpretation of this sacred, of this magical relationship that Torah represents to the Jewish people, Lula's family will be offering the lyrics of Stevie Wonder, If It's Magic. It's on page 3 of Lula's program.
If it's magic, then why can't it be everlasting? Like the sun that always shines, like the poets in this rhyme, like the galaxies in time.
If it's pleasing, then why can't it be never leaving? Like the day that never fails, like on seashores there are shells, like the time that always tells.
It holds the key to every heart throughout the universe. It fills you up without a bite and quenches every thirst. So if it's special, then why with it aren't we just as careful?
As making sure we dress in style, posing pictures with a smile, keeping danger from a child. It holds the key to every heart throughout the universe. It fills you up without a bite and quenches every thirst.
So, if it's magic, why can't we make it everlasting? Like the lifetime of the sun, it will leave no heart undone, for there is enough for everyone.
We invite Lula back to the bima.
God is at the center of most religions. In Judaism, we traditionally refer to God as Adonai, who is the center of our prayers and rituals. That God is a mystery. The idea that God can be one or all things is a hard concept to understand. Those things seem to be complete opposites of each other. You can see God as one thing or consider it as all things in existence. This is not necessarily in conflict, it just gives us a lot to consider. If God is one in the Torah, how does God take on so many forms? If God was a person that I could see, I think that I would have a harder time believing in God than I already do. This person that I could look at would be in control of everything. God is not personified in Judaism, and the fact that God has many names gives God some kind of title. If I would interpret God as the universe, I would rather just call God the universe or the higher power. Something so powerful that I can't understand and has created everything and everyone. It's basically like saying the universe, but calling it God, a different name. Please join me in reciting the Shema and calling God by name.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
Page 277.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך ובביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
Please continue with the paragraphs that make up the Ve'ahavta through page 285 at your own pace.
Adonai Elohechem Emet.
On page 291, we sing our liberation song, the song that Moses and Miriam led our people in dancing through the split sea. Lula will give a, oh, go ahead, Ze'evi.
No, please, you go first.
Lula's going to give us some orientation towards this next part of the service, a central component called the Amidah, which we think of almost as like the spinal column to which we all rise. So, Lula, come on up.
The Amidah is the time in our service for reflection and meditation. Although we are left alone, we are still together with our community. At this moment of quiet meditation, we are able to be alone with our thoughts, alone but together, not conforming to anything or anyone. It's interesting to say this prayer silently because even though you pray together, you think about what is meaningful to you. Praying alone has a different effect. It may be smaller, more quiet experience. All of our individual wishes and reflections are made more powerful as a formatted group experience. We start and close the Amidah with being positive. We start in unison with the blessings that recognize our ancestors and the might of God, and we end with prayers of thanksgiving and prayer for peace. Oseh Shalom. Please rise in body and in spirit as we prepare for the Amidah on page 291.
291.
Sur Yisrael, Kuma ve'ezrat Yisrael, ufideichenu mecha, Yehuda ve'Yisrael. Go aleinu, Adonai Tzevaot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael.
Amen. 295.
Adonai sefatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Elohei Bilha, v'Elohei Zilpa. Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasei Avot v'Imot, U'Mevi Geula Livnei V'Nehem, Le'ma'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Moshiach U'Magen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Rav le'Hoshia. Mashiv haruach u'morid hagashem. Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechayei kol chai berachamim rabim. Somech noflim verofeh cholim, umatir asurim, umekayim emunato lishenei afar. Mi chamocha ba'al gevurot, umidomelach, melech memit umechaye, umatmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman atah lahachayot kol chai. Baruch atah Adonai, mechayei kol chai. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאיך, וקרא זה אל זה, ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. אז בקול רעש גדול, אדיר וחזק משמיעם קול, מתנשאים לעומת סרפים, לעומתם ברוך יאמרו.
Baruch kevod Adonai mimkomo.
ממקומך מלכנו תופיע, ותמלוך עלינו כי מחכים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון, בקרוב ביומנו לעולם ועד תשכון. יתגדל ויתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך לדור ודור ולנצח נצחים. ועינינו תראינה מלכותך, הדבר המור בשירי עוזך, על ידי דוד משיח צדקך. על ידי דוד, על ידי דוד, על ידי דוד משיח צדקך.
ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה.
לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש. בשבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
Amen. Please take some time for your individual prayers, the matbei tefillah, the words of your heart rather than the words of the page. And when you feel complete, you can have a seat.
Page 323, Oseh Shalom.
Oseh shalom, shalom imromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al
turn back to Lula's program for a prayer for the animals, which is going to be read by her cousins, Tenny, Zelda, and Simone, who are in your seats somewhere.
Hear our humble prayer for our friends, the animals, especially for animals who are suffering, for animals that are overworked, underfed, and cruelly treated, for all wistful creatures in captivity that beat their wings against bars.
For any that are hunted or lost or deserted or frightened or hungry, for all that must be put to death. We entreat for them all thy mercy and pity, and for those who deal with them we ask a heart of compassion.
And gentle hands and kindly words, make us ourselves to be true friends to animals, and so to share the blessings of the merciful.
Thank you. We turn now to page 319 for Birkat HaShalom, the blessing for peace, also known as the priestly blessing. We're going to enact a tradition which actually originated at my home synagogue, Congregation Dorshei Emet in Montreal, which is if you are wearing a talit and if you're sitting next to someone who's in your pod, then we encourage you, and I'll do it symbolically, to kind of bring the people in your pod next to you under your talit. Lula is wearing a talit that was given to her by her grandfather, which Beth wore at her bat mitzvah, and he wore at his bar mitzvah, yes? Yes. So she's gonna put that around her mother's, and I encourage you to stand if you are able to, and we will symbolically or actually put each other under the wings of our talit as we pray for the peace of each other, of our community, and of the world.
And Lula and I talked a little bit about the language that we wanted to use for this prayer, and we decided to adapt it to use non-binary, gender-neutral Hebrew, not just for human beings, to represent the multitudinous genders that we have here today, but also for God, so that we can see the uniqueness of ourselves reflected in the divine, just as we have sparks of divine inside of each of us. Yivarechecha hamakom v'yishmerechem.
May God bless you and protect you.
Ya'ere hamakom paneh eleche
v'chuneke. May the Eternal's face give light to you and show you favor.
Yiset hamakom paneh eleche v'yasem leche shalom.
May the Eternal's face be lifted toward you and bestow upon you peace.
Amen.
Amen. Please be seated. Page 381.
Yitkadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbi ve'alma divrei achirtei v'yanlich malchutei b'chayachon v'yomachon v'chayedecho beit Yisrael b'galav v'zman kariv v'meru Yehei shemei Rabbi mevorach le'olam u'l'alamei amaya yitbarach v'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnasei v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitala shemei dekudesha barichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata damiran be'ama v'yimeru Amen. Titkabel tzlot ahon avot ahon dechol Yisrael kodam avuhon v'yishmaya v'yimeru Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemayim v'chayim, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imeru. Amen.
Lula, come up here and tell us what we're about to do in this Torah service.
The Torah is the glue that holds us all together. Part of being in a Jewish community is celebrating holidays, attending Shabbat services, and connecting to the weekly Torah portion. Through generations, we all listen together to the sounds of Torah. Being able to say the same words in the same place over centuries and talk about it together is something that all Jews share. What would we do without the Torah? The prayers, the holidays, the stories all come from the Torah. How would we be Jewish without it?
We rise on page, no, you stay right here. We rise on page 383 as we begin our Torah service with the words of Ein Kamocha.
Ein kamocha v'Elohim Adonai, ve'en kema'asecha. Malchutecha malchut kol olamim, u'memshaltecha bechol dor v'dor. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. Adonai oz lemo yitein, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. Av harachamim heitiv v'irtzonecha et Zion. Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim. Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim. Kivecha levad vatachnu, melech eram v'nisa, Adon olamim.
On page 387, we invite up Lula's uncle Jordy and the entire family to open up our ark. We remain standing while the Torah is in our presence. And beloved liberal minion leader Eileen Block will come forward to lead us in Be Anarachet.
Be'anarachet Velishme Kadisha Kadisha Yakira Ana Amartu Shbechan Be'anarachet Be'anarachet Velishme Kadisha Kadisha Yakira Ana Amartu Shbechan Yehera Avakodamach Tetiv Taklibi Beoraita Betashli Mishalin Delibi Beliba Decholamach Yisrael לטוב ולחיים ולשלום. Amen.
In you alone I place my trust. To your holy, precious name I call out praises. Join us on page 393 as we take the Torah from the Ark, and Lula leads us in the call and response Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonai. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Adonai Hagedula, Hagedula, Hatiferet, Hanetzach, Hagod, Kivol Bashamayim, Ba'aretz, Kivol Bashamayim, Ba'aretz, Adonai Hamacha, Me'amid Naaseh, Lechol Erosh. Romenu, Adonai
We can be seated now that the Torah is all set. I'm on page 395 for Vayazor, and the response is on page 397. Vayazor v'yagen v'yoshia leho hachosim bo v'nomar amen. Hakol havu godel Eloheinu tnu chavod laTorah. Let everyone declare the greatness of our God and give honor to the Torah. On page 397. V'atem hadvekim b'Adonai Elohechem hayim kulchem hayom. Our first Torah reader this morning is our bat mitzvah, Lula Greenfield-Herold. Lula will be called by her Hebrew name to Torah. This is a very important moment in Lula's Jewish life, that she is being called to mitzvah, and she is answering by showing up. Just a quick and loving reminder that as awesome as Lula and each of our magnificent Torah readers are going to be this morning, it's our tradition not to clap. It's not a performance. It is a commandment. It is an honor for us to be able to participate in the reading of Torah all together. So we can definitely have some ASL applause and some gasps of disbelief at how gorgeous our Torah laners are, but no clapping, please. Oh, yes, a prize to whoever knows what page we are on in our Plout Chumash. We are in Parshat Vayera. Try 132, beginning with, Genesis 21, verse 1. Is it on page 132? 133.
And if you need a big blue chumash, raise your hand and we'll get one to you. Anyone who doesn't have one? Excellent.
Ekra lamod, lamod, lamod. Levi Alex bat batya chaba v'kiki habat mitzvah. Chazak chazak v'nit chazek.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar Banu Im Kol Ha'amim Benatan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Adonai Pakad Etzarach Ka'asher Amar Vayas LeAdonai Lisara Ka'asher Diber Vatahar Telet Sarah Levraham Ben Lizkunav Lamoed Asher Diber Oto Elohim Vayikra Avraham Et Shem Beno Hanolad Lo Asher Yalda Lo Sarah Yitzhak Vayamo Avraham Et Yitzhak Beno Ben Shemonat Yamim Ka'asher Tziva Oto Elohim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Our Torah reading continues, and we will bless the Torah honoring Lula's grandfather. This is Martin Greenfield. And this aliyah is in honor of all CBS team members who have built this community and joined us this morning. Our Torah reader is Saul Zalkin, and he will pick up Genesis chapter 21, verse 5. So Martin, if I could invite you to join us here at the Bima to recite the blessing.
Wait.
Just 1 second.
Wait. No. Take the end of the top. Baruch Adonai Habarach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Habarach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher borcha banu mikol ha'amim v'notan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Abraham ben ma'at shana, Bihibaled lo et Yitzchak beno, Vatomer Sarah tzechok, Asali Elohim, Kol hashomea yisachak li, Vatomer mi mileh Abraham, Heini kabanim Sarah, ki yaladeti ben lizkunav, vayigdal hayelet vayigamal, vayas Abraham mishte gadol, biyom higamel et Yitzchak, vateres Sarah et ben Hagach hamitzrit, Asher yalda leAbraham mitzachek, vatomer laAbraham garesh ha'ama hazot be'et bena, ki lo yirash ben ha'ama hazot im beni im Yitzchak, vayera hadavar Me'od be'enei Abraham al odot beno, Vayomer Elohim el Abraham, al yera be'enecha al hanach v'al amatecha, kol asher tomar elecha, Sarah shma b'kola, ki b'Yitzchak Yikare lecha zara, v'gam et ben ha'ama l'goy asimenu, ki zaracha hu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher notan lanu Torah emes, v'chaye olam notah b'sukeinu. Baruch atah Adonai no Torah haTorah. Amen.
Amen.
And under his breath, Saul appropriately muttered the Shehecheanu blessing for his first time reading from the Sefer since COVID. Our third Torah reading is in honor of loved ones who are no longer with us. This is an aliyah in honor of Yortzeit. So if it is the anniversary of the passing of someone you love very much, if their memory is held close in your mind, you too are included in this blessing. Lula's moms, Beth Greenfield and Kiki Herold, will be reciting the blessing. And our Torah reader is Harold Levine. You can pick up with Harold. He's starting on verse 14 of chapter 21.
Right here. Just look right there. You don't have to touch it. Just look at this word and then sit there.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach leolam va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayashkem Avraham baboker, vayikach lechem vehemat mayim, vayitein el hagar, sham al shikma ve'et hayeled, vayshalchecha, vatelech vateta b'midbar be'er shava. Vayichlu hamayim min hachemet, vatashlech et hayeled tachat echad hasichim, vatelech vateshev lach mineged parchek, kim tacha vehekeshet, ki amraha al ereh b'mohot hayeled, ותשף מנגד, ותישא את קולה, ותהף. וישמע אלוהים את קול הנער, ויקרא מלאך אלוהים אל הגר מן השמיים, ויאמר לך מלאך הגר, אל תיראי, כי שמע אלוהים אל קול הנער באשר הוא שם. קומי, שאי את הנער, והחזיקי את ידך בו, כי לגוי גדול אשימנו. ויפקח אלוהים את עיניה, ותרא באר מים, ותלך ותמלא את החמת מים, ותשק את הנער. ויהי אלוהים את הנער, ויגדל, וישב במדבר, ויהי רובה קשת. וישב במדבר פרן, ותיקח לו אמו אישה מארץ מצרים.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Our fourth Torah reading this morning is in honor of those in need of healing. The blessing will be recited by Jenna Pisnoy. Ze'evi is going to bring the mic and the blessing card to Jenna's seat. So Jenna, if you want to wave at Ze'evi, there you go. And our Torah reader for this fourth Aliyah is Neil Hoffman. So Jenna, when you're ready, if you would rise, and following Neil's Torah reading, we will be reciting a blessing for all of those in need of healing.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvara. Baruch Adonai Hamvara Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu im kol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayhi beit hahi, vayomer Avimelech, uvichol sar tzvao el Abraham lemor, Elohimcha b'chol asher ta oseh. V'ata hishava li b'Elohim hena, im tishkor li ulnini ulnechadi kachesed, asher asiti imcha taseh imadi. V'im haaretz asher gata ba, vayomer Abraham anuchi, yishavea v'hochiach Abraham et Avimelech, al odot be'er hamayim, asher gozlu avdei Avimelech, vayomer Avimelech lo yadati, mi asa et hadavar hazeh, וגם אתה לא הגעת לי, וגם אנוכי לא שמעתי בלתי היום. ויקח אברהם צאן ובקר, וייתן לאבימלך, ויכרתו שניהם ברית. ויצב אברהם את 7 כבשות הצאן לבדהן, ויאמר אבימלך אברהם, מה הנה 7 כבשות האלה אשר הצבת לבדנה? ויאמר כי את 7 כבשות תרחק מידי, בעבור ההיא לי לידה, כי חפרתי את הבאר הזאת, על כן קרא למקום ההוא באר שבע, כי שם נשבעו שניהם. וכתוב ברית בבאר שבע, ויקם אבימלך וכל שר צבאו וישובו אל ארץ פלישתים. וייטע אשל בבאר שבע, ויקרא שם בשם אדוני אל עולם. ויגע אברהם בארץ פלישתים ימים רבים.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'hayei olam nata b'tuchenu, Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. To lead us in a prayer for all in need of healing, we invite Lula's uncles, George and Trevor, who will offer this blessing from their seats. Ze'evi will bring you the microphone. And if you want to follow along with this beautiful blessing from Siddur Kol HaNeshama, we're on page 5 in Lula's program.
Prayer for healing. May the one who blesses all life bless and heal these people who struggle against illness. May those afflicted with disease be blessed with faith, courage, loving, and caring. May they know much support and sustenance from their friends, their loving companions, and their communities.
May they be granted a full and complete healing of body and soul. May those who seek ways of healing through increased medical knowledge, and those who care for the sick daily be blessed with courage, stamina, and communal support. May all, the sick and the well together, be granted courage and hope. And let us say, Amen.
Amen. For our 5th Torah reading, our reader is Rabbi Ayelet Cohen, and this aliyah is in honor of the extended Herold family. The blessing will be recited by Gramps Don Herold. So Don, we invite you to join us up here at the bima. Ekra la'amod, David Leben Mendel, Hasaba Hayakar, Chazak Chazak v'nitchazek. I call to read David Leib, the son of Mendel, the beloved grandfather.
Hu es Adonai Hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach Yolam Va'ed. Baruch Ato Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bocha bonu mikol ha'amim. Baruch Ato Adonai. V'nosan lonu es Toraso. Thank you. Baruch Ato Adonai nosen haTorah.
אמן. ויהי אחר הדברים האלה, והאלוהים נישא את אברהם, ויאמר אליו אברהם, ויאמר הנני, ויאמר קח נא את בנך, את יחידך, אשר אהבת את יצחק, ולך לך אל ארץ המוריה, והעלהו שם לעולה על אחד ההרים אשר אמור אליך. וישכם אברהם בבוקר, ויחבוש את חמורו, ויקח את 2 נעריו איתו ואת יצחק בנו, ויבקע עצי עולה, ויקם וילך אל המקום אשר אמר לו האלוהים. ביום השלישי וישא אברהם את עיניו וירא את המקום מרחוק. ויאמר אברהם אל נעריו, שבו לכם פה עם החמור, ואני והנער נלכה עד כה, ונשתחווה ונשובה אליכם. ויקח אברהם את עצי העולה, וישם על יצחק בנו, ויקח בידו את האש ואת המאכלת, וילכו שניהם יחדיו. ויאמר יצחק אל אברהם אביו,
ויאמר אבי, ויאמר הנני בני, ויאמר הנה האש והעצים, ויעשה לעולה. ויאמר אברהם, אלוהים יראה לי הסה לעולה בני, וילכו שניהם יחדיו.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, ונתן לנו תורה אמש, וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נושא התורה.
Kavod to our reader and our blesser. Our next aliyah, the sixth aliyah, will be read by Andrew Engel, and it's being blessed by Mindy Cohen on behalf of the extended Greenfield family. Mindy, give a wave so Ze'evi knows where to find you and bring the mic to you. All right, let's make sure you're at the right place.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamarach.
Baruch Adonai hamarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher barucha banu m'kol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
ויבואו אל המקום אשר אמר לו האלוהים, ויבן שם אברהם את המזבח, ויערוך את העצים, ויעקוד את יצחק בנו, וישם אותו על המזבח ממעל לעצים. וישלח אברהם את ידו, ויקח את המאכלת לשחוט את בנו, ויקרא אליו מלאך אדוני מן השמיים, ויאמר אברהם אברהם, ויאמר הנני, ויאמר אל תשלח ידך אל הנער, ואל תעש לו מאומה, כי אתה ידעתי כי ירא אלוהים אתה, ולא חסכת את בנך את יחידך ממני. וישא אברהם את עיניו, וירא, והנה איל אחר נאחז וספח בקרניו. וילך אברהם ויקח את האיל, ויעלהו לעולה תחת בנו. ויקרא אברהם שם המקום ההוא אדוני יראה, אשר יאמר היום בהר אדוני יראה. ויקרא מלאך אדוני אל אברהם שנית מן השמיים, ויאמר בי נשבעתי נאום אדוני, כי יען אשר עשית את הדבר הזה, ולא חסכת את בנך את יחידך, כי ברך אברכך, והרבה את זרעך ככוכבי השמיים, וכחול אשר על שפת הים. וירש זרעך את שאר אויביו, והתברכו בזרעך כל גויי הארץ, עקב אשר שמעת בקולי. וישב אברהם אל נעריו, ויקומו, וילכו יחדיו אל באר שבע. וישב אברהם בבאר שבע.
Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emes, v'chayei olam notah b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. final Torah reading, our seventh this morning, will be read by Elizabeth Wilson. Elizabeth is beginning on verse 20 of Genesis 22. And this aliyah is in honor of all of Lula's teachers, the ones that she's related to, the ones that she's collected along the way, the ones who belong to our CBST community. And as representative of these teachers, we ask Mia Rothstein to offer the blessing for this aliyah. Let's find you. Yeah, that was easy.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנו עם כל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן.
אמן. ויהי אחרי הדברים האלה, ויגד לאברהם לאמור, הנה ילדה מילכה גם היא, בנים לנחור אחיך, את רות בכורו ואת בוז אחיו, ואת כמואל אבי ארם, ואת כסד ואת חזרו, ואת פלדש ואת דילף, ואת בתואל, ובתואל ילד את רבקה, שמונה האלה ילדה מילכה לנחור את אברהם, ופילגשו ושמו ראומה, ושמה ראומה, ותלד גם היא את טבח ואת גחם, ואת תחש ואת מעכה.
אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Mia, who is also Lula's beloved tutor for her bat mitzvah, will be chanting our Haftarah portion this morning. This is our prophet's reading from the book of 2 Kings, chapter 4, beginning with verse 1. Yes? Verse 1. And so this is coming, if you're looking in the Plat Chumash, right after the Torah portion, which is one of the reasons that we like this book. You can just go from Torah to Haftarah in a page flip.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנביאים טובים, ורצה בדבריהם הנאמרים באמת. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בתורה ובמשה עבדו, ובישראל עמו, ובנביאי האמת והצדק. Hard to breathe in the mask. ואישה אחת מנשי בני הנביאים צעקה אל אלישע לאמור, עבדך אישי מת, ואתה ידעת, כי עבדך היה יראה את אדוני, והנושה בא לקחת את שני ילדיי, לא לעבדים. ויאמר אליה אלישע, מה אעשה לך? הגידי לי מה יש לך בבית. ותאמר, אין לשבתך חול בבית, כי אם אסוך שמן. ויאמר, לכי שאלי לך כלים מן החוץ, מאת כל שכנייך, כלים ריקים אל תמעיטי. ובאת וסגרת הדלת בעדך ובעד בנייך, ויצקת על כל הכלים האלה, והמלא תעשיי. We're doing a truncated haftarah. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, צור כל העולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות. האל הנאמן, האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. על התורה ועל עבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה, שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו לקדושה ולמנוחה, לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך. ישתבח שמך בפי כל החי תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. That was for you.
Lula's grandma, Deborah Greenfield, is going to read the prayer for our country. You going to come up? You can come up. Which is in the booklet on page 6.
Source of all life, guide our leaders with righteousness, strengthen their hearts, but keep them from hardening, that they may use their influence and authority to speak truth and act for justice. May all who dwell in this country share in its bounty, enjoy its freedoms, and be protected by its laws. May this nation use its power and wealth to be a voice for justice, peace, and equality for all who dwell on earth. May we be strong and have courage to be bold in our action and deep in our compassion, to discern when we must listen and when we must act, to uproot bigotry, intolerance, misogyny, racism, discrimination, and violence in all its forms, to celebrate the many faces of God reflected in the wondrous diversity of humanity, to welcome the stranger and the immigrant, and to honor the gifts of those who seek refuge and possibility here, as they have since before this nation was born. Let justice well up like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream.
We turn to page 407 for the lifting and wrapping of the Torah. Ze'evi is going to do Galila, and we invite Liz Balst for Galila, and Ze'evi is going to do Hagwa. Please rise. Asher Samoshe Lifnei Bnei Yisrael al Liz.
Please be seated.
And we now invite Lula to share some words of Torah with us.
Shabbat Shalom. We have just finished reading Parshat Vayera, which includes the tale of Sodom and Gomorrah. In the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, God has decided that these cities are just so terrible that God must wipe them off the face of this earth. The reason being that the people living here were doing bad things on a daily basis. These were cities full of chaos and violence. Abraham, the first Jew, eventually made a deal with God that if God can find 10 good people in the city, it will remain unharmed. Unfortunately, this did not happen, and only one family was found. Abraham's nephew Lot and his wife were 2 good people and welcomed 2 visiting angels into their home and prepared them a meal. However, an angry mob gathered outside their door, threatening violence against the angels and Lot, who was protecting them. As the visiting angels were leaving, they told Lot and his family to escape and not turn back. This instruction was very clear. Lot's wife did not follow that simple direction and chose to look back on the burning city. Thereupon, she was turned into a pillar of salt. Lot's wife is not even called by a name in the Torah, even though she is such a significant character in the story. But later rabbis decided that her name would be Edit, from the Hebrew word aid, which means witness. You're probably wondering, why salt? And I couldn't tell you, but I have read several midrashim, interpretations of the Torah, none of which I particularly agree with, but one I did like was by Rabbi David Kimchi from the 12th century, suggests that what turned her into salt was the air itself, less a reflection of Edith's ethics, but rather looking back meant she couldn't escape. She was caught in this wave of salt and sulfur. The rest of the city was destroyed, and Edith's husband and 2 of her daughters remain. But my question is, why did she choose to look back if the instruction was so simple? Was it her idea of ethics or her lack of obedience? Either way, was being turned into a pillar of salt really an appropriate punishment? I don't think so. Despite the reason, the fact that Edith did look back on her burning city tells me she felt empathy, sadness, maybe even regret. Wouldn't this make her a better person rather than worse? She was able to feel pain for even such horrible people, and then she was punished for it. There are a lot of reasons why we can assume she would have been punished, even considering her empathy. Perhaps she was just not tough enough to put her sadness aside, and that was the end of her. Rabbi Sandy Sasso suggests, Edith in her compassion bears witness and is paralyzed. Maybe she felt such empathy or sadness for the people left behind that she couldn't go through with running away. Perhaps she was not hospitable enough to welcome the angels when Lot was. It does stand out to me that the initial examples of being hospitable in the Torah were Abraham and Lot, men and not women. Women were usually the gender assigned with welcoming and caretaking. Was this a punishment for Edith not doing so? And what made her turn around when she could have so easily escaped the situation? Midrash Agadah, a collection of stories about our Torah, suggests that Lot and Edith had more than 2 daughters. But their other daughters didn't believe that the danger was real, so they stayed behind. So did she turn around out of empathy for her possible remaining daughters? If I had to give it an explanation, the reason Lot's wife was turned into a pillar of salt could be she had the opportunity to escape. She was safe and protected from the consequences she would have faced if she were a bad person. She was told not to let back, and yet she did anyway. She had the opportunity that very few people had, and yet still chose to break the rules and, for whatever reason, look back upon her burning city. Maybe people thought this could be described as an abuse at her chance of freedom, or maybe even entitlement. I read a contemporary midrash by Rabbi Betsy Torah about voyeurism, the need to watch. It's the feeling you have when you're watching a scary movie, and even though it's not something you really want to see, you also can't quite look away. Or how traffic jams happen when there's a car accident, because everyone has that weird, but human, need to see exactly what happened. This feeling wasn't any different for Adit. It wasn't that she wanted to look, but rather that same feeling we could recognize that she had to look, and she had to witness that destruction. I mean, if I were in a situation this ethically challenging, I know I would look back on my home if it were my last chance. It's her home. Wouldn't it be unethical to not look back on a place that you have lived and are fond of? Reasons aside, I believe it doesn't matter what exactly her motivation was, but the actual action of turning around and breaking the only instruction she was given is what put her into a pillar of salt, whether that was fair or not. This story, without any interpretation of your own to fill in the gaps, is pretty ridiculous. Even after studying it in depth for months, I'm still not sure I understand what's going on. But maybe that's part of the reason that this story is placed in the Torah. A lot of Torah stories you can sit through with a blank stare and understand easily, but this one requires some thought, and maybe that's part of its purpose. It catches your attention and demands you to think about it, unlike plenty of other bland stories. If so, that would be the thing that makes the most sense to me about the story, the fact that it is confusing. Adit felt the need to see what was going on, and I'm sure we all would. It's only natural as a human being to have that feeling of voyeurism, the need to watch even if it's painful. Why would it be so different for Adit? That is definitely what inspired a lot of my thoughts. That's definitely what inspired a lot of my thoughts, and I think it is a really interesting subject that probably almost all of us can connect to our personal lives. But there is a difference between awareness and acknowledgement. Instead of just feeling like you have to see, you have to look deeply and try to understand or to help. As a New Yorker, I can think of countless times when I have walked past someone begging on the street who is in need of help, but I don't have a dollar or any concrete way to help. The feeling I feel is a conflict between should I look or should I not look at their pain? Do I acknowledge their pain by purposefully seeing them, or do I maybe protect them from my gaze by letting my eyes slide by? Adit probably had the same feeling. Do I look at my city as it suffers, or do I look away out of respect? Maybe what this story wants us to understand is what Rabbi Torah says. As Jews, we teach the contrary lesson. We must know the heart of the stranger. Looking into the eyes of another, panim el panim, face to face, is the first step to true knowing. If we turn from the beggar on the street, if we avert our eyes from the person with a disability or a disfigurement, if we fail to look at the wounded person lying in the hospital bed, then how can we ever truly hope to make a difference to those who are suffering in our midst? This way, we can make this human inclination a meaningful choice instead of purely a selfish need. It's cool how the same idea is possibly being portrayed in such an ancient text when it is something that we do all relate to now. This is the opposite of what the story tells us to do, that we should learn to look instead of look away. I think we should look. Sure, she was punished, but personally, I think she did the right thing. We can do as she did and make our inclination into an opportunity to keep ourselves aware and educated. Perhaps that's what it meant all along. The fact that we still learn a lesson from this 1,000-year-old story is what's important. It's not surprising that it isn't the exact same lesson that was intended for you to learn those thousands years ago. I hope that taking this into the future, I can keep myself aware of problems in the world that I need to acknowledge instead of just not looking back. Shabbat Shalom.
Lula has proven a negative PCR test, which is what we require for all of our service leaders to be maskless at the Bima. And your words are such a gift. They were beautifully delivered. We are also putting a transcript of Lula's Devar Torah into a link in the chat if you're on Zoom. And if you're in person, on your way out, you can grab a copy of her Devar Torah for further reflection and study. But there are a whole line of people who are waiting to deliver some words to you, some blessings of love and appreciation. And so very first, we want to invite up your moms, Kiki and Beth, to give you some blessings.
Sweet Lula, we say it all the time, but it cannot be said enough. How lucky we are to have been blessed with you as our child. You are fun and funny and thoughtful and loyal and forgiving and smart and passionate, beautiful and tough, both mentally and physically. You are silly and joyful, shining with a bright light, even first thing in the morning. But maybe most importantly, you are resilient. Something that has served you very well, I think, during this uncertain, isolating, and at times scary past year plus of the pandemic. It's a quality that served you well when you've had disappointments, whether in school or on the playground, and when witnessed not one mom but two go through cancer treatment. And it is a quality I know will carry you through your teenage and young adult and older years. Something else I know will carry you through: the community of love we've built around you. Grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, and our magnificent chosen family of artists, athletes, musicians, and just all-around mentors who love you fiercely. And who can blame them?
I know I pushed you into becoming a bat mitzvah, partly because it was so significant for me as a young girl, but more because I wanted to celebrate you and your beautiful attributes: resiliency, loyalty, community, that are also such bedrocks of Judaism, of the Jewish people. Your Torah portion is perfect microcosm of all of that. Lot's wife and her desire for just one more loyal look at her community, her belief, at least, in her own resiliency. I know you find most of the Torah stories to be ridiculous, not to mention the concept of an omniscient, all-powerful God, and that is okay. My hope for you in this bat mitzvah all along has never been to shape your religious or philosophical beliefs. It has been for you to understand simply that you are a Jew and what it means to be Jewish at its most elemental: resiliency, loyalty, community. May you be blessed with that knowledge at the deepest place within you, and may you call upon it for strength for all the rest of your days. Tehiyah asher tehiyah, v'tehiyah bracha. Be who you are, and may you be blessed in all you become.
We love you so much. Thank you for everything you give to us every day, just by being you.
If she isn't crying too hard, I would like to invite the president of the CBST Board of Directors to join us on the bima to give Lula some actual physical presence. And I'd also like to ask at this sneaky moment if Lula's cousins, Tanny and Simone and Zelda, would start passing out candy down here. And if Mia's class, if we could have a couple volunteers to bring candy up to the balcony.
I too have a negative PCR test, so I am okay to take my vote mask off. As I said last night, I can't believe I'm constantly following the amazing things. It's not fair, Rabbi, and the next time we have to move this to a different place. Perhaps you should speak next. Either way.
Sabrina, can you talk directly into the mic so everybody can hear?
Yes. I am so moved to be here for so many reasons. I represent the board of directors, the entire synagogue, and the entire kahal when we say to you, Lula, and your beautiful parents, thank you so much for being a part of CBST. Thank you for embodying all things CBST. You are an archetypal CBST family, which means to say there is no archetypal CBST family. We're so delighted to welcome you all back to the sanctuary for this to be our very first in-person B mitzvah since the pandemic started. It feels absolutely appropriate. So I get the best job as president to give the B mitzvah gift. So I have these lovely wrapped tomes, and I'll tell you what they are. So underneath all this glittery paper, there is a chumash because it is our deep hope that you will come back and learn again at CBST and continue your Jewish learning with us and in other spaces. There is also a copy of our very own Friday night Siddur, which we use every Friday night and which embodies the way CBST practices their spirituality. You're very fortunate too, Lula, that one of the rabbis who led your B mitzvah, Rabbi Ayelet Cohen, is the principal author of that Siddur. So I leave that up to you. And the very last, the smallest gift, but to me the most important gift, is the US Constitution. Because as my mask said, vote before I took it off, that's the most important thing I think that we as citizens can do. And at CBST, we feel as though politics and religion, what you do in the world, are very much linked. And clearly from your gorgeous Dvar Torah, you believe the same thing. So.
Now that Lula's hands are tied up holding her presents, I want you to hold the candy. I want you to hold the candy and try your hardest not to crinkle it too loudly as Ze'evi and Rabbi Cohen and I get some of the last words. Lula, no part of the Torah is just simple. And the stories that you wrestled with in your Torah portion reflect some of our most complex. And I want to be honest with you, Lula, that it was in our studies together that my own high holiday sermon was so deeply informed about the sacrifice of Isaac. It's one of the most important stories that we read over the whole course of the Jewish year. We read it on Rosh Hashanah. But that's not what caught your attention, because you have a very discerning eye. You went looking for the person whose story didn't get told. You asked her, "What's your name? Why did you do the things that you do? Who was your family? And why did you make the choices that you made?" And that's exactly who you are, Lula. You're always the person who is asking the deep questions. You're the one who's patiently waiting to discover the answer to the mystery that lies in front of you. And you're the one who puts it all together. This is an extraordinary gift. And we are so lucky that you bring your love and your passion and your poetry to your Jewish life, as well as your aerial gymnastics and your guitar playing and your sailboating and all of the other fun things that you do, but that you take such joy and passion in becoming a Jewish adult and to stepping into our community that loves questions, that loves queer radical answers, and that loves new discovery. We are so, so proud of you.
First, a word to your moms, if I may. Kiki and Beth, I was really struck during the Torah reading and thinking about this day, how much as parents of adolescents, we are so frequently asking our kids to do things that are really, really hard, that are really hard for them, that are really hard for us. We also, as parents, find ourselves doing things that we never imagined we might be doing for our kids, for the experience of parenting. And we don't always know how it's going to turn out. And we ask our kids to come with us on this journey, to do these things that we know will be difficult. Going to school on Zoom, going back to school after Zoom, having a bat mitzvah, growing up in a world that feels sometimes like it is on fire, that it feels like it's so full of evil, and asking you to figure out how to be a good, compassionate, kind person in this world, even though we couldn't make it for you the way we hoped we could make it. And we ask you to do these things as parents, and we hope that the path through will provide itself, will somehow become discernible, even though often we enter onto the path not knowing how exactly we are going to find our way through. And that is one of the most terrifying parts of parenting. My sense is that it's one of the most terrifying parts of being a kid in the world of, will I find my way? How will I get through? And it's been such a gift for me to come in at the end of your Bar Mitzvah process, to get to see the way that you walked through this piece of this journey, that you found you found the path through, you managed, after your preparation for your Bar Mitzvah, being in a year of so much turmoil, to stand here with poise and to teach us something that each of us needed to learn and needed to hear, and that hopefully we will carry through our journeys as we continue through the world. So I want to bless the two of you, Beth and Kiki, with continued strength, with the ability to find the way through the challenges that are already apparent and the ones that are coming and we may not see them around the next bend. And to you, Lula, to continue to find the strength to carve your own path through, even if it means teaching other people, teaching adults that this is actually the path. And so I'm full of blessing and gratitude for being here to witness this and this step in what I am sure is going to be a beautiful, beautiful journey.
Lula, just as we blessed each other by spreading our tali tote over each other's shoulders, we're now going to bless you on the occasion of your Bar Mitzvah. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless you and keep you. Yael Adonai paneh elecha v'yichuneka. May God let God's face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yised Adonai paneh elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God grant you the greatest gift of all, the gift of peace. Mazel tov, simin tov, simin tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, simin tov, simin tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, simin tov. Yehelanu, yehelanu, yehelanu.
Could we get some cleanup on the bima Anyone who is under age 18 or who needs a snack, please come and get this candy.
Simin tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, simin tov, simin tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, simin tov, simin tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, simin tov. Yehelanu, 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 ulecho Yisrael. Yehelanu, yehelanu, ulecho Yisrael. Mazel tov.
Mazel tov, mazel tov. Page 441, we stand, if we're able, as we prepare to return the Torah to the Ark.
We invite up Eileen Block to lead with Ze'evi. As we open up our ark, please stand as we are in Torah's presence.
Eitz chaim hi lamachazikim ba vetomcheha meushar derocheha dorchei noam v'chol netivoteha shalom hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva chadesh yameinu kekedem.
We remain standing for Aleinu on page 445. And we're saying the first paragraph on the page.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שנתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, כה כתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ.
seated. We pause now to remember those loved ones who are no longer in our midst, who we remember in this season, on this occasion, or if we are in mourning. This week, we extend condolences within our community. I'm sorry, I don't have the, oh, here. We extend condolences to CBST members Andrea Cantor and Mindy Alpert on the death of Andrea's mother, Florence Cantor, who died on October 11th at age 91. Lula's family is remembering very much today Kiki's mother and the grandmother that Lula never knew, Lula Greenfield-Herold, and Kiki's aunt and the great aunt that Lula was named for, was lucky enough to have known and loved, Auntie Anna Lee Culp and Lula's Nana B, Beatrice Blanco, as well as Beth's brother, Adam Greenfield. Today we also mark the yortzites of CBST members Robert Christensen, Irving Fisher, Sarah Gold, Renee Rosenfield, and Kenneth Ween. Also family and friends, Madeline Singer-Alexander, Hilda Berman, Beatrice Eric, Sarah Ziefert Kotick, Goldie Levin, Nina Lutrin, Joseph Matatia, Samuel Person, Alan Rosenberg, Kenneth Sherman, and Joyce Tipograph. We also today remember on the 3rd anniversary of the murders of the Tree of Life congregation in Pittsburgh, the 11 Jews who were murdered that day, Joyce Feinberg, Richard Gottfried, Rose Mallinger, Jerry Rabinowitz, Cecil Rosenthal, David Rosenthal, Bernice Simon, Sylvan Simon, Daniel Stein, Melvin Wax, and Irving Younger. Please say out loud the names of anyone else who you're remembering today, or add them in the chat if you're at home. If you're in mourning or observing a yahrzeit, or if it's your custom to stand, please do so. The Mourner's Kaddish is on page 451. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Be'alma divra chirutei ve'amlich malchutei. B'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye dechol beit Israel. Ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach leolam olmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. Vitadar, vitale, vitalal, shemei de kudsha, richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru. Amen. May the one who creates harmony and peace in the heavens make peace and bring comfort for all of us on earth. And we say, Amen.
Amen.
When we all leave the space, even if we are not taking away the same thing, we leave here with new thoughts and ideas. Let us leave here with the feelings of connection and spread what we have created out into the world. In the words of Jackie DeShannon, what the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing there's just too little of.
Shalom aleinu ve'al kol
invite up the co-coordinator of the Liberal Minyan, Liz Gals, to share some announcements with our community.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. And Lula, on behalf of the congregation, let me just say this, wow. You really floored us. Your service leadership has been incredible, and while I usually invite our Mitzvah young people to come back and chant from the Torah, I think I also want to invite you to come back and introduce and narrate our prayers. So, Rabbi Rapport asked me to read this thing on behalf of the minyan to you, and you'll forgive me if I geek out a little bit about trees, which are special things to me. In this week's Parsha, which you chanted from so beautifully, Abraham plants a tree. Specifically, it's a tamarisk tree, which is an interesting kind of tree because it's so adaptable. It can live in both salty and alkaline soils. It can reproduce via seeds like what we expect, but it can also extend out its roots and stems and grow new trees that way. It can resprout after a fire, and it can live in water, near water, but also like out in the desert and in pastures. I was thinking a lot about this tree this week because yours, as you know, was their first in-person mitzvah here in a really long time. And Mazel Tov again to you and to your parents. But back to the tree, it seems kind of like a metaphor for this whole process of your becoming a bat mitzvah, of becoming an adult in the Jewish community. After all, in the arid part of the world where Abraham lived, planting a tree is an act of faith, but it's also an act of regeneration. One has to hope there's enough moisture to support the tree, but trees themselves can help retain moisture where they are found, and so they act as a kind of a defense against drought. Lula, for a long time now, I've known like almost every mitzvah kid here at CBST, and during these announcements on behalf of the community, I say something about them, but because of the pandemic, I haven't really gotten the opportunity to know you or your parents. So instead of saying something about your many excellent qualities, which were all on display here today, on behalf of the minyan, I want to offer you this blessing. May you become like a tamarisk tree, resilient and adaptable. As your community supports you, you help us grow. I know I speak for the entire minyan in saying we look forward to watching you flourish in the years ahead. And now onto the business end of the announcements. Thank you to Rabbis Cohen and Rapport for leading us in a beautiful service, for Ze'evi, for your beautiful music, to Lula and Saul and Harold and Rabbi Cohen and Neil and Andy and Elizabeth for chanting from the Torah, and to Mia for the Haftarah. There are a lot of things going on in this community in the coming weeks. So I recommend to you check out the website and the e-news, but a few specific things that I want to call to your attention. One is we are doing a program on Thursday, October 28th, in conjunction with the Museum of Jewish Heritage, with the incredible historian Lillian Faderman and also the author Eric Marcus on Harvey Milk, his lives and deaths. She's the author of the new book coming out on him, and it's like a great opportunity for us. The adult education classes are still enrolling new people, and there's a lot of exciting stuff going on. We're also just really incredibly fortunate on Wednesday, October 27th, to host a lunch and learn with Israeli and Palestinian speakers from the Parents Circle Families Forum. This is a group of people who have unfortunately lost loved ones in the conflict in the land of Israel and Palestine, and they are kind of rising above all of that to promote peace. And what else can I tell you? Sadly, because of COVID, we are not having our usual in-person Kiddush. This means I don't get to describe the Kleinbaum Shmir roll, but it also means that because of COVID, we are trying not to linger in the lobby and say all of our hellos and give everybody a big hug, but hope that People can do that outdoors. Luckily, it's stopped raining, so that's all a good thing. Have I forgotten anything else? Mazel tov again. Shabbat shalom.
Before we go, we say blessings. We bless the Sabbath day. We bless that which we will drink and that which we will eat. We invite Lula, Kiki, and Beth to join us on the bima as we sing V'shamru and Kiddush and Motzi. Page 465.
Shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. בסברי חברימותיי, ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן.
Lula, would you reveal? Oh, thank you, Rabbi. Go ahead.
And we bless our challah together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Shabbat shalom, mazel tov.